One of the topics that's so important to our overall health is gut health. And many patients come into our office not even realizing that this is an issue. And when we think about the gut and the digestive system, it's the place that stuff from the outside world enters into our body and then becomes absorbed and assimilated into our body, usually in the form of food, but other things could come in too. So as a result, probably somewhere between 70 and 80% of the immune system is centered around the gut. So if you have most of the things in the gut are absorbed from the large intestine. So the gut has, your esophagus, and then there's the stomach, and then the stomach empties into the small intestine that winds all around, and then there's the large intestine. And a lot of nutrient absorption happens both in the small and large intestine. And so as a result, this is where the body or the immune system is going to recognize many foreign things coming into the body. Therefore, there are a lot of immune system cells right outside the lining of the gut. So due to this, one of the places that, or one of the risks of having the gut be out of balance is that the immune system starts to overreact to things that it shouldn't react to. And this can lead to a variety of different autoimmune diseases. So in talking about the lining of the gut and immunity, in the colon, there's a single cell wall layer that separates the inside of the intestine from inside the body. And that single layer is supposed to absorb nutrients in their smallest form. For example, carbohydrates are broken down into glucose molecules or fructose molecules. Proteins are broken down into amino acids, and fats are broken down into fatty acids. So they're supposed to be broken down into these very small molecules, and then they go through the cell of the gut wall, and then it's presented into the bloodstream around the gut. And the immune cells that are there recognize those things as fuel and know what to do with them. When the gut starts to be dysfunctional, if there's damage to that lining of the gut, what can happen is instead of the cells being closely opposed so that the particles can only go through the cell, there can be gaps in what's called the tight junctions between the cells. Now, when these gaps are here, these items that are getting absorbed from the gut are flying into the body both at a higher rate and in different forms than they would come through the cell. So larger particles of things that might have been excreted are now able to get in. And when in addition, there are things that can actually damage the cells so they don't function well. And when those larger particles that might not be all the way broken down get in and are presented to the immune system, the immune system doesn't recognize them as food or fuel and recognizes it as something foreign that it needs to get rid of. So the immune system ramps up, it calls in its helpers, and they start to make antibodies and react to these molecules. And this is typically how food sensitivities develop, that there's some damage to the lining of the gut, and then some molecules from the corn get in, and now your immune system starts reacting to corn or whatever that food might be. The problem is that in nature, proteins are very similar. So if you are reacting to a substance that looks an awful lot like some of your thyroid cells, now your immune system is not only attacking what it thinks was abnormal from the gut, but now it's starting to attack your thyroid gland, or maybe it's your joints in something like rheumatoid arthritis, or maybe it's the brain in Alzheimer's disease or MS. So gut health is very important to controlling the balance of immunity in the body so that you're not getting too much overreaction and inflammation, but yet you're still getting enough to fight off infections or bacteria or mutating cells in the body. So gut health is super important for immunity, for one thing. And the things that can damage that lining of the gut are many. So a lot of the toxins in our environment, pesticides, herbicides, things like that we may be ingesting in our food may damage the gut. Stress can damage the gut. So when cortisol levels are high, or if you have to take a steroid for something, like prednisone, for example, that can damage that lining of the gut. If you are sensitive to a certain food, so if you have celiac disease or a sensitivity to gluten, that can damage the cells that line the gut and then lead to other food reactions in the gut. Certain medications, things like antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, sometimes even long-term use of some of the acid-blocking medications like Prilosec or omeprazole or things in that category can damage the gut. There's some evidence in some studies that even birth control pills can damage that gut lining. So, eliminating those medications can be very helpful, as well as if you have to take one of those medications, doing additional things to help balance gut support on the other end. One of the other critical parts of gut health is something that we call the microbiome. Again, for those of you who took biology in high school, which I think is part of high school, you may remember talks of different biomes, which are different, basically, environments where different types of organisms live. Well, in our gut, we have what's called a microbiome because it's all microbiologic organisms like bacteria, viruses, yeast and fungi. All of those things live normally in the gut. And the diversity and balance of those microorganisms living in the gut are critical to our health and survival. In fact, there are trillions of bacteria in the gut, probably even more than there are cells in our body. So our gut and that microbiome has evolved to be critical in how we maintain our health. So anything you can do to improve the diversity and health of your microbiome will help gut health. For example, if you have a great diversity of good bacteria make a substance called short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs. And those short-chain fatty acids help heal and repair that gut lining that I was talking about that can get disrupted by stress and medications and food sensitivities. So, doing things to enhance good bacteria, like taking probiotic or eating fermented foods, can be helpful. But even more important than that is feeding those good bacteria with the prebiotics needed to help them grow and thrive and flourish on their own. So the more diverse of prebiotics and the more diversity of fruits and vegetables and plant-based products in the diet, the more diverse your microbiome will be. So it's not hopeless. Like if your diet's limited to chicken nuggets, pizza, and burgers, your microbiome is not going to be very diverse and it can lead to health issues. The goal would be to, over the course of a week, eat 30 different kinds of plants. And when I say plants, I mean beans and whole grains and fruits and vegetables. But the more variety you have, the better your health will be and the better the gut will be able to heal itself. The microbiome is very sensitive to things like antibiotics. You may take an antibiotic for a sinus infection and think, oh, I'm treating my sinuses. It's also wiping out many of the bacteria in the gut. So it's super important to help support the gut and the bacteria in the gut when you do something like take an antibiotic. We are finding out the microbiome is a very great topic of research right now. Lots of scientists are trying to research the connection between the microbiome and all different kinds of illnesses. And we're finding connections between the microbiome and the development of diabetes, the development of heart disease, the development of Alzheimer's disease, beyond just how the gut can affect the risk of autoimmunity. So we're going to find that this gut is super important to the management and prevention of chronic illness. Finally, the gut and the brain are very connected. There are actually different bacteria in the gut that can influence things like anxiety and depression. And just to, again, show the connection of the gut to the brain, they did an experiment, they being the scientists that work in the lab, where they took the gut bacteria from anxious mice and put it into normal mice, and the normal mice became anxious. So the gut and the brain are very connected, and you can even think about how that affects you in normal life. Everyone's had butterflies in their stomach when they're nervous about something, or you get a gut feeling about something that you feel it here that this is what you should do. So they're very intimately connected, But no one ever thinks of looking at the gut when they're trying to address anxiety, depression, memory problems, concentration problems. So that's very connected. I also wanted to mention back to the connection between diabetes and high blood pressure and the microbiome. There's also some influence of the microbiome on weight. For example, another experiment, these are all animal experiments, but when they transplant the microbiome or the bacteria in an obese mouse into a thin mouse, the thin mouse becomes obese, and vice versa. When you put the microbiome of the thin mouse into the obese mouse, the obese mouse becomes thin. So what's going on in the gut may have a lot more to do with many of the symptoms, imbalances, chronic illnesses, and things that we develop that we attribute to other body systems like the heart or the brain or the lungs. And so I feel it's very important to start thinking about gut health and how to improve it. Now, in addition to dietary things that we talked about, increasing vegetables to increase the microbiome, sugar is very harmful to the microbiome. Refined carbohydrates are very harmful to the microbiome. So cutting those out of the diet and focusing on whole foods is going to improve the gut health. In addition, there are supplements that can help improve gut health. Things like L-glutamine, aloe vera extract, DGL, digestive enzymes if you're not breaking the food particles down enough, fish oil, vitamin D. There's a huge variety of supplementation that can help heal the gut lining, improve the digestive function of the gut, add probiotics to the gut, add prebiotics to the gut. But truly the foundation is going to be in avoiding the things that damage the gut, as well as nutrition and putting the right things into the gut.